Staying Alive UK. Share your story.
Hello and welcome to the Share Your Story podcast series, a business biography, their story so far. I'm Michael D. Groot and I'm your host. My purpose through this podcast series is to inspire you to take the next step towards your new business venture or indeed develop your existing business even further. I only interview business owners who employ less than 9 employees, and mostly they will be on their own. So let's get straight to it. I'm delighted to have with me today on the Share Your Story podcast, Vicky Franklin. And before you hear from her, I'm just going to give a short introduction. Vicky has been playing sport and riding horses ever since she could walk. To reach her goal of treating horses and riders, she had to start with the Human Bowen. Bardley Bowen, the name of her company, is a small private clinic offering horses, riders and humans Bowen Therapy. Bowen Therapy is a very gentle complementary therapy that works on a whole range of conditions, including muscular, skeletal, emotional and visceral dysfunctions. It is believed to work by stimulating the nervous system and by acting as a factory reset for the body. It helps the body to restore optimum structure, functionality and health. Bowen is good for both acute and chronic issues. It treats the whole person, and because it's so gentle, it is effective for animals and humans of all age ranges. This is going to be a great conversation. Vicky, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I am very well on this beautiful spring morning. How are you?
Brilliant. And thank you for joining us and taking the time out from treating horses and people with your Bowen therapy. And
yeah.
But before we get to Bowen, which is what you're doing now, we're going to take a step back into past for you.
Okay.
So start off with sharing a little bit about your own personal life, where you were born, where you now live, maybe a bit about your family, hobbies, interests. Well, I can guess the interests and hobbies, but I want to hear from you. Tell us a little bit about your history.
Oh, goodness. Okay. So I was born in Watford to Gabby and Richard Franklin. God, far too long ago. I apparently exceeded all expectations at about 6 months because I sat bolt upright one morning with my nappies and just said quite clearly, horse. And Mum and Dad just looked at each other, and apparently that was it. That was my passion in life, which was horses and ponies.
At 6 months?
Yeah. Apparently I was a very strange child, but it was always every time we drove somewhere, I was pointing at the ponies, and they'd stop and let me get out and pat the ponies. And so ponies was a huge part of my life. As I was growing up, however, my parents were. And in hindsight, I really went through a phase of hating them because they wouldn't buy me a pony, and I stamped my foot a lot. But what they actually did for me was they brought me up to believe in, if you wanted something, you had to work for it. And in hindsight, I really value what they did because I bought my first horse when I was 30, and it's taught me a phenomenal amount about valuing what I have, because I actually ended up having to work very hard and save very hard, and I appreciate it. Anyway, back to where I was in Watford. My brother came along at 3 years old, when I was 3 years old, and we had a very happy life in North Watford. I went to school, Parmenters, and did all the things that you do, and was destined for a career, very strangely, in English, which it's a bit of a sidetrack. But I left school early. I left school when I was 17 with 3 A-levels, and I found myself being very bored. And I went to the local college and had an epiphany, if you like, and decided I was going to do maths and physics in a year. And everyone stared at me and said, no, you can't do maths and physics in the air. I said, no, I can, because one of my big skills is problem solving. And I felt that I could solve any problem in the world, and particularly from an engineering bias. So everyone looked at me and looked very strange and said, well, if you want to go and do that, off you go. So after a year, I got my maths and physics A-levels, and then I thought, well, I've done quite well at that. So with my 5 A-levels, I think I'm going to do an engineering course at university. And again, everyone pointed at me and said, you're supposed to be doing English. I said, no, I'm going to do engineering. Ah, well, okay, go on then. Let's see if you can.
Good for you.
And the thing about my life is that whenever anyone says to me, you can't do it, very much like my mother, the first thing I do is say, just watch me. So that's pretty much what I did. And I went to Loughborough, and I had a fantastic time at Loughborough. In many ways, I had made some wonderful friends, and yes, I did get my engineering degree. And it meant that I then started my first job in Peterborough, or just outside Peterborough in Huntingdon, doing some engineering on gas and water pipes, they were basically round with a hole, and it was all about processing plastic.
Yeah.
And while I was there, they then said, "Oh, you know, would you like to do a master's?" I said, "Yeah, I'll do a master's." And I've been very much like that in my life. If anyone gives me an opportunity, then I'll grab it. And I kind of viewed my 20s and certainly my 30s as being a bit of a sponge. If anyone said there's a training course going, I was the first to sign up, and I was always there learning and learning and learning and learning.
Brilliant.
And my career kind of took me to some very strange places and some very strange jobs, but I always viewed it as a progression. So if I didn't get anywhere within a company, I was too impatient and I wanted to get to the next place, and there was more for me to learn, and off I went and I did something else, and I gradually progressed up the tree, if you like. Yeah. To a point where it's a very strange thing to say, but when people say there is a glass ceiling, I was actually, and I distinctly remember the moment, I was in a meeting in one of the companies I was working for, and I'd done relatively well, and I was looking for my next progression. And I hit the glass ceiling in a very tangible bump. And It was a very strange feeling, and it really was a physical bump. And I just thought, oh dear. Mm. Oh, no, this is not going very well. What am I going to do? And the company I was working for at the time, it was all heavy aircraft. I'd reached the heady heights of program manager. So I'd gone from technologist to project manager and then program manager. And I'd worked for cars. I've designed parts for engines. I've designed interior parts. I'd worked for, if it basically was an engineering project and a heavy engineering project, I'd probably had my mitts on it somewhere. Yeah. And when I had this tangible bump, I thought, oh, now what do I do? And about a month or so later, the company said, right, we're in real financial trouble. We want some volunteers to take redundancy. And I thought, oh, well, obviously this company values me. I know what I'll do. I'll just see what my figures, how much? And I thought, no, they're never going to want you to. Okay, fine. So literally within a week, the deal was done, and I was off. Wow. And I gave myself the most wonderful career break. I had, it was August, end of August. Beginning of August, I left the company. And August, I had the most phenomenal time. I still had the horse, and we were competing an awful lot, and I was chilling out, and I'm not ashamed to say I bummed around quite a bit, and I just had fun, and I kind of just really chilled out. And if you've ever really been in the corporate world, it is actually quite a stressful place to be. It is. They demand, and what it's actually, in hindsight, looking back over my life, it's quite interesting when I hear other people talking about their corporate life. You know, when I started work, you got to the office at about 8:30ish, and then you had an hour's lunch, and it was a gentle ride, and then you kind of left at 4:30, 5 o'clock, and then it started that you got to the office at 8, and you had half an hour, and then you left at 5, and then you got there at 7:30, and you left at 6 o'clock, and then you got there at 7, and then you left at 7, and you're not coming in at the weekend. And a lot of my friends who are still working, they work 14-hour days. and the company owns their life.
Yeah.
And that I found, I can look back on my life and think, well, I actually was at that point where the company was owning my life and dictating what I was doing and where I was going.
Let's pause there for a moment, because I think you've just described corporate Britain. I mean, some years ago, there were lots of stats out, and corporate Britain by far worked the longest hours of any of our European cousins. I'm not including America, because they're mad in America for working, but they and any American cousins that are listening, it's not personal, you just work too hard. And Britain is a very close second in the world in terms of the hours that it works. And you're absolutely right. And this podcast is for those people that are listening, that are doing 14-hour days. Yeah. That just imagine if you were spending 14-hour days on your own business that you are in charge of, that you are reaping the benefits from. Yeah. And not suggesting that it's an easy ride to do that, but at least you know it's for yourself and not for somebody else, particularly some shareholders who are getting very rich off the work that you're putting in, right? Yeah. So, and I know this is the capitalist way of the world, shareholders and all that, and I'm not knocking it, because we all benefit at some level, but yet, yeah. So I love that you brought this up, because we haven't in previous podcasts actually talked about it enough. So thank you for that, Vicky. So,
right.
Okay, so you were bumming around, having a great time, right?
Yeah, well, you see, the thing that is, I've got one of those really awful work ethics where I actually like to earn my money. I like to go to work and I actually like to achieve something, and then I like to be paid for it. I'm not one of those that can just sit there and expect a wage. And that was the point of talking about the horse, was that's what my parents taught me, was that, if you want something, you damn well earn it. You put the hours in, you put the graft in. So I got to a point where, yes, I could have had a really nice career break, but I started getting itchy feet. I started getting very twitchy, and my brain started going, well, you just, if you're not careful, I'm going to turn to cabbage. And I thought, well, no, I need to do something. So I kind of contacted a job agency, and within days, I had a contracting job. And at that time, contracting was incredibly lucrative. And I had a whale of a time. I absolutely had a whale of a time. I worked for Airbus down in Filton, and I actually currently live in a little village just outside Bardley. So to drive from Bardley to Bristol every single day, I started off and I was all full of the joys of spring, and it was, I was getting all this money, and I was really rather energized by it all. And I did it for about 18 months. And what I worked on was the Jumbo, the A380, and I worked on the nose landing gear.
Wow.
And for me, it was fantastic. At the time, we had a real problem with the supplier, who happened to be based in Paris, what a shame, who happened to be based just outside the Palace of Versailles. Oh, dear me. So I ended up spending quite a lot of time over there, building bridges, building relationships, working with them, and putting it all back together and putting it all so that it worked properly, whilst I still had the horse. And at the time, I had reached the heady heights of novice British eventing, which meant I had to keep the horse fit every night. I had to do fitness work with him. So I would leave the house at about 6 a.m, drive all the way down to Bristol, do a very long day, drive all the way back, get to the yard about 7 o'clock and do my galloping. And we just about managed. It probably wasn't the best option in the world, but we did it, and I was determined. I was absolutely determined, because, again, other people said, you can't do it. So, right, just watch. So I did that for about 18 months, and very, very slowly and very gradually, it started taking its toll. The older you get, it's natural that your energy levels start diminishing, and unless you are an exceptional example. But I started getting very, very tired, and my energy reserves were just, I could just about compete. And then the next week I was knackered. But, we kept going because someone said I couldn't, so I did. And then I loved the job as well. It was in charge of this landing gear, which is a 2-meter dynamic structure and I think we had about 1,000 components on it, and I was running it, and I was kind of looking after it and massaging it and managing it and all the personalities involved. And we had people from France, we had people from all over the world inputting into this, and I had to kind of coordinate it. And there was a huge buzz about it, and it kind of kept me alive for a while. And then the guys at Airbus said, right, well, you've done that really well. We want you to now fix the freighter. Oh, well, okay. And the freighter is obviously the freighter version of the aircraft. So you have the civil, which is the passenger fee paying thing, and then you have the freighter, which literally carries freight across the world. And they wanted me to look after the wheels and brakes, which basically, when you've gone for something that's got over 1,000 components and is quite dynamic to something that's round and rubber, didn't really inspire me that much. No. So I thought there's a better world out here. So I spoke to a couple of job agents and decided that actually the best thing to do was to kind of start my own company. And I made myself like a proper limited company, and then I freelanced. And I suppose as a contractor, you freelance anyway, but I was more of a troubleshooter. People would get me in to solve problem projects, all this, that, and the other. And I was able to do it a lot more locally. And I did it on all kinds of things. And I had a whale of a time. I had a real blast. And I was doing, oh God, I did everything. Still, the horses were in the background, and I'm still doing this and still doing it with the horses. And then obviously we had, I remember driving to work one morning in 2008, and the news hit about the city falling to pieces and this, that, and the other. Yeah. And I just kind of drove up to a traffic lights and stopped and listened to the piece on Radio 4 and thought, oh dear. Right. Okay. What am I going to do now? And I just had an inspiration that perhaps I should stop messing around with this contract malarkey, because it was going to dry up and I ought to go permanent. So
can I just ask you there, with all of the contract, even with that freelance contracting work, what were the hours like there?
Oh, I picked and chose, but I could do anything I wanted. However, because of the horsey background, there is a saying, make hay while the sun shines. And I viewed, and again, it's all down to how I was brought up. You always needed to have some money in the bank, because you never knew when you needed it.
Sure.
Make hay while the sun shines, all this for a rainy day and all that kind of stuff. So for the 7 years, I think it was, I ran my own little company. I probably had a week off.
Wow.
Because I kind of viewed it, and it's relevant to the story, because you'll see why later. But I viewed it that if someone's going to pay you that much money for a day's work, then respect it and take it, because you never know when you're going to need it. And what happens if you have an accident? What happens if you're ill? What happens if?
Yeah.
Have some money, and if someone's prepared to pay you that, it's kind of rude not to take it. Is how I viewed it. So I did. I worked my. I did work myself quite hard. I was quite driven, and I chopped around a bit, and there were opportunities that were better than others, and there were jobs that were better than others. But it was okay. The point will come on to in a second. Then I had the collywobbles, let's just say, and I decided that really I ought to go permanent. And at that time, I was it's very strange, but I was actually being fought over by a company.
Right.
Who had a requirement for a contractor up in Manchester, but also wanted me to work down in Cheltenham. So I thought, well, the Manchester gig is going to pay me an awful lot of money. Let's just do that for a little bit, and then I'll go and join the other company in Cheltenham. So I did that with a view to giving myself at some point in my life a really nice break, or a holiday, or buy another horse or a bigger horse box or something like that. Didn't work like that. It was 2.5 hours to the place of work. It was a 10-hour day, 2.5 hours back. And my energy levels, again, were diminishing, and they were diminishing quite quickly.
Yeah.
And I just hit a brick wall at some point, and I thought, no, this is really not good. So I negotiated working from home 1 day a week, still keeping up the intensity, and still riding, doing all that kind of stuff. But at that point, I used to kind of come home, be home at 8:30, and I would have to do the horses in the evening. I paid someone to do the horses in the morning. I had to do the horses in the evening. Then I would go to bed, and then I'd get up and start all over again. Friday night, if I was very lucky, I had the energy to go out and socialise. Saturday and Sunday, I was in bed asleep.
Mm-hmm.
And, there is a saying, nothing comes for free. And what I didn't realise until what I'm doing now is I was actually only paying other people to support my life. And what was my life? My life was being in the car, working, or mucking out horses, which really wasn't,
and how long
wasn't fulfilling.
How long was it before you came to that realization?
About 3 months. Okay. I started the job in September, and I think I got to about Christmas, and possibly beginning of December. I said, "Look, this is no, I can't." But I was very lucky because I had an option, and I could also sit back and say, if I hadn't have had that option, I would have found it. I would have made that option happen.
Yeah.
So I took that other option and I started the work again. It is permanent now. I transitioned. I crossed over from the dark side. And
okay.
Permanent job in Cheltenham.
Oh my God.
I know. But Cheltenham. I mean, it worked. It worked very well. It worked to a point very well. And I did that for 3 years. But there were some difficulties. There were, it wasn't the smoothest of rides. And what wasn't helping was that I still had all that tiredness, all that physical baggage from doing all of the previous stuff. And sitting in a car for an hour and a half every day just about finished me off.
Yeah.
So I then looked for another opportunity. And it's really sad because the opportunity that was sold to me really wasn't the opportunity that it turned out to be. Mm-hmm. And I found myself thinking, this is making me very, very unhappy. It's close to home. It's fulfilling everything else, but it's just not what I left the other job for. It's not what I thought it was going to be, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So I think the way that it went was that I had made my mind up to hand the notice in on a Wednesday, and on a Monday they called me in and said, not really working, is it, Beck? And I said, well, no, I think it is. And they said, well, here's a big check. Ah, right. Okay. Let's do that. Let's do that. And I remember driving home thinking, yay. Oh, what am I going to do now? And the bit, so we've kind of talked mainly about my career, but the bit that we haven't really talked about, and you introduced me, was the Bowen. Okay? Yeah. So if we kind of wind back a bit and talk about how I got into that. So the horses have been the thread, okay? And Ben, my soulmate, the love of my life, I bought him. Buying him was a bit of a challenge because he failed the vet first time, but I bought him, it's now nearly 19 years ago. And all the way through, I was absolutely determined to keep this horse going. My horse was going to be the oldest horse in the circuit. My horse was the one that I was going to keep fit and sound and healthy. And to do that, it meant basically I had to roll my sleeves up and learn all about everything that I could influence horses with. So I went and did my British Horse Society stages 1 and 2. So I got some kind of formal education. I then went and bought every single book under the sun about horse care management, about the structure of the horse, the physiology, the anatomy, how to keep it going, about massage, about various techniques, various bits and pieces. And very often I would be at the stage, they used to laugh at me because I had a book in one hand and I was massaging or teaching myself how to do all this kind of stuff in the other. And I basically taught myself horse massage and I taught myself shiatsu.
Wow.
And shiatsu is basically acupressure.
Yeah.
And we all know about acupuncture, which uses needles. Acupressure uses fingertip touch. So it's exactly the same place, but it's fingers.
Yeah.
And I taught myself all of that and got to the point where actually I was quite good at it. Mm-hmm. And I was quite good at it. And because of the veterinary laws in this country, you can only treat your own horse. But my horse, the only failing he had was me as a carriage rider. But, we were working on that. But he was physically the best. And he's now 26 and he's still happy and he's still trolling around the field looking like an angel. But anyway. So I got to the point and I thought, so this was around about the time of the 2008 crash. And I thought, this is my escape route. This is it. This is what I need to do. And it took me, I was looking for a way in. I was looking for, how do I get to this point where I can leave the office and I can treat horses? How do I do it? And I looked everywhere. And as often happens, and certainly the way my life has gone, it was an absolute accident. And I was with a friend, and there is it's almost like a national conference, if you like, called Your Horse in Stoneleigh, and it's held every year. And I went with a friend, and she loves to shop, and I don't really love to shop, and I was carrying her bags, and And we got to the end of the last day, and she said, there's one thing I forgot, and I've got to go back. And I'm like, oh, for God's sake, here we go. So there's me carrying her bags, and she's run off, and I'm following her, and I turned a corner, and these two ladies were standing, facing me, staring at me. And I was just drawn to these two ladies. I don't know why, but I was drawn to these two ladies. And we got talking, and they said to me, right, well, this is, fine, hear what you want to say, hear what you want to do. You could do treating horses, and you could do this course. And I said, well, I've looked into that because I can't do it because I've got a certain lifestyle, and I need the income, and I can't take 8 years out to do that training. Right, they said, you need to try Bowen. Bowen, what's that? And I thought they said Bone, B-O-N-E. They said, no, Bowen, B-O-W-E-N. So they said, right, this is what you need to phone this is what you need to. So this kind of got me very curious, and I sat scratching my head for a bit, looked it up when I got home. Okay, this might be doable. Okay, this might be doable. This really, really, really might be doable. So I kind of got in touch and phoned and spoke to and all this kind of stuff. And I started the course in 2012. So this was when I went permanent, and this was a human course. And again, they said to me, you can't do horses until you do humans. And I had this horrendous image, and I did not want smelly feet on my couch. I just had this awful image. I thought, I am not smelly feet would just send me out into spirals. And they said, you can't do horses until you do humans. Oh, pants. Okay. All right. Well, all right. I have to do it. So, I was working. This is where the two kind of stories converge. I was working, and I was training. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So working and training, and
that's the best way, actually. Just to pause there for a second as well. To, again, those that are listening and want to transition into a new business, their own business, do your training whilst you're still working, because to start your training, even if you get a handsome payout, it will disappear really, really quickly. And I became unstuck with that as well. So, not as well, but I did. And lots of people make that mistake. They get a handsome payout and then they start their training. No, start your training. If you have some inkling what it is that you want to be doing, start it whilst you're still paying. So very clever. Yeah.
That's what I did. And then, that actually, it's not, if you're going to do that, you need to really steel yourself. You need to, and this comes back to the final piece where bit of advice, you need to plan. You really need to plan, because everything needs to work smoothly. There's nothing worse than you have to do your homework, you have to do this, you have to go to work, and then you have to look after everything else. So I was super, super organized, and super, everything was planned to an inch of its life, and it worked. And great. I ended up, I quite happily, exams, I don't like exams, they send me cold, but yes, I passed. And then I gave myself it wasn't quite a year. I gave myself kind of 10 months of actually having a human clinic and treating people, because I wanted to learn how the body would work, how the body would respond to that. And I actually wanted to develop more of what I was doing. And 2014, I started the horses, and I was still working. So I was working, and I was having a human clinic, and I was training for horses. The horses, animal work is a phenomenal thing, because animals are incredibly sensitive.
Yeah.
They tell you straight away if you get it wrong, and you have to learn to listen to the horses or the animals, and you have to learn when they're telling you that you've got it right, so that you can adjust, or when you've got it wrong, so you can do something different.
Yeah.
So that proved to be that was really hard. Actually, that was really hard because horse owners are very particular, and I was a new girl on the block, and why the hell should we? So I had to do quite a lot of legwork to get my case studies, but my case studies I did. 2015, I passed. So at the time where I had left the other company, the penultimate company, and started with my last company, I was working. I had a horse clinic and a human clinic. And I remember saying to my mum,
whilst you're still working?
Yeah.
Okay.
and I also had taken on my darling young horse, and I also had taken on a little Shetland pony. So and chickens. So my entourage at home included, there were 6 chickens, there were 2 horses and a pony, there were 2 cats, and it was just me on my own. And yeah. Now, in hindsight, possibly I was a little bit ambitious, but it all came to a head. And I remember this conversation with my mum where I was saying, I can't give up Bowen because it's my future. I can't give up Bowen because it's my future.
Yeah.
And everything I talked to her about was about my future. The only thing that was my current and the thing that was making me most unhappy was the job.
Yeah.
And back to the planning and back to earning all that money. When I had that discussion with the company and they gave me that check, I was in a very, very good place because I had a rather nice bank balance to support me.
Yeah.
I had everything that I needed. I mean, for Christ's sake, how many black handbags does a girl need? You don't need that many.
No.
So I had set myself, and I hadn't actually, it wasn't until a week after the momentous event where I was standing on my own thinking, oh God, what am I going to do now? That I actually realised that my whole life I had set myself up. And some of the listeners think, well, I haven't got that much time. Well, you don't necessarily have to have that much time. You just have to have a bit of planning. You just have to decide. And that was the thing that really, really, when I sat back and I did an awful lot of soul searching, and the soul searching was about who am I? What do I do? What makes me tick? Who do I need to support me? And I say that because it was very interesting that, I mean, in my career, 25 years I was doing what I was doing. I had met and worked with thousands and thousands of people. And out of all those thousands of people, I'd probably say I had a handful of close friends. I probably had a very, very dear friend that I met when I was 18. So her friendship is non-negotiable. That will always be there. And I'd met another girl. And so those 2 were my absolute closest buddies. And then I had, I don't know, 10 or 12 really, they were close friends. And then the rest were acquaintances. When I walked out of that corporate world and I took my first breath of freedom, I only had 2 people that I'd still count on. And everybody else walked away, and I don't speak to any of them now because they didn't understand what I was doing. They couldn't work out what I was doing.
No.
Someone said, I am so jealous of you. And I was like, hey, whoa. No, all that happened to me was I had like a blinding moment, and I knew what I had to do. It's like building an escape raft. I viewed my life as I had a plan. I had a 5-year plan, and I managed to complete it in 4.5 years. But my 5-year plan was basically building an escape raft.
Yeah.
For something that was making me so incredibly unhappy. And if I'm honest, I'd probably say I was suicidal at one point because the corporate world, it wasn't so much you go to work. It was more, which vein do I offer up? Because I was being, and it was, I see my friends now. And if I look back and muse over my corporate life, I cannot tell you how many divorces, how many burnouts, how many mental breakdowns, how many illnesses, and serious illnesses, operations, how many, dreadful. And again, back to the where I am right now. So yes, I was brave, but someone said to me, you will never make a success of it, which was, at the time, it was like someone had smacked me in the face. But back to how I always do things, it made me sit up and go, just you watch me, bitch. Just watch what I do. And
okay, so now we're here.
Yeah.
You've got the business.
Yep.
You're running the business. It's Bowen Therapy for horses and for humans, called Bardley Bowen.
Yeah.
So tell us, how's it working? How's it going?
Oh, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. It's working really, really well. I can't say, well, I wish I'd done it a long time ago, but I wasn't prepared. I wasn't in the right state, in the right frame of mind, and everything wasn't set up. I hadn't planned myself to do it. So I'm doing it now. And I have made more friends that are actual friends. There's a phenomenal Bowen community. There's actually a phenomenal alternative and complementary health community. People are very generous with their time, with their they want to see people succeed, and they're supportive. There's lots of regional interest groups. There's lots of networking groups to go to. There's so many ways of getting support.
Yeah.
And that's that's where we met. I had a thing about networking, and it wasn't so much that I needed to network for advice from a business. What I need for the therapy side of it, what I went for was just to hear someone say, I've done that, and I'm still alive. I survived it, and I've done it, and I survived it by doing this. And this is the person you speak to, and this is how you do it. And when you're on your own and you feel like you're about to drown, because let's face it, if you spent 25 years doing something, whether you like it or whether you don't like it, it's a habit. Yeah. And if you stop doing it, suddenly, you still wait. It took me 9 months of recovery, shall we say. My first 9 months going out on my own, of not waking up thinking, shit, I'm going to be late for work.
Yeah.
And not washing and pressing my work clothes, if you like, and not having flashbacks and not thinking, oh my God, is that meeting time? And it took me about 9 months to kind of get over that. And then probably a further 9 months to find my feet doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I am very, very lucky. I'm very, very lucky. I'm pretty good at what I do.
So the question I've got then, so it's gone full circle, I believe, because you've come from corporate life, running your own small clinic, but now you've gone back into corporate life to help some of those stressed out people, right?
Oh, yeah.
So tell us about that.
That was a weird thing. Because, okay, networking, right? So I was looking for networking, and I was looking for networking opportunities, and and this one particular thing kept popping up, saying there's a networking meeting. Oh, for God's sake. There's a networking meeting, and it's a breakfast meeting. I'm not the best at getting up in the morning. I'm never really good at getting up in the morning. And this was a 6:30 start. And for some reason, one of my appointments had cancelled on me, and I thought, do you know what? I'm going to go. I'm going to go and see. I'm going to go and meet new people and talk to new people and just have breakfast. So I went and had breakfast, and it was a meeting about the 6 Ways development in Worcester. And this company was in charge of the redevelopment, and it's a big industrial park. And I just sat there listening, thinking, oh, what on earth am I doing here? This is about construction and builders, and what on earth?
You are an engineer.
Yes, that's true. That is true. But every opportunity, every situation you are put in, there is always something good that you can take from it. Whatever the situation is always, however big or however small, there's always a small thing that you can take from it. And I sat there and I thought, hang on a minute. This is an industrial park of 3,000 people. I wonder who provides the healthcare, right? So I'm sitting there musing away, and I'm thinking, well, wow, wouldn't that be a good thing to do? Wouldn't that be awesome if I just managed to have my own little clinic? And so I'm going off on this train of thought. We have breakfast, and I'm chit-chatting away to other people, and then I kind of turn around, and these 2 guys are standing there facing me. I thought, hello, here we go again. So I just walk up to them and I say, hi, what about this? And they said, no, we don't need that kind of therapy. I said, no. no. I'm just. I said what I'm thinking of is offering companies like yourselves the facility for me bringing my couch in, setting it up. I said, because you get massive benefit, you don't get sickness, you don't get, staff having time off through sickness or actually time off to go to see a physio or go to see the doctor. I would be there. They literally get up from their desk, travel 5 or 6 steps, go into a conference room. There I am. I treat them, half an hour later, bosh, off they go. Everyone's happy. And they just looked at me and said, you're fired, you're hired. I'm like, what? Really? And they said, well, you approached us. I said, I approached you to sound an idea out. I didn't think you'd take me. And they said, no, how much? Oh, my God. I'm like, hang on. Right, this is how much it is. Done. And they gave me a date. I'm like, what? And I've been there since my 6th month. I've been there. Brilliant. And I go there once a month. And I treat all the ladies, all the guys, anyone who's got a problem, bad back. I've got a couple of ladies with fibromyalgia that I help. Couple of ladies with actually there's one who's a horse rider. I've helped her in her position, riding position that is. One of the ladies she's a fitness freak and she waits for me to fix her. It's awesome. It's absolutely awesome. And every day something it's a fantastic life. It's brilliant. The only downside is I seriously don't get the same amount of money that I was earning before, but I'm at home. I don't need to employ people to look after my horses. I cut my cloth accordingly, and at the moment, everything is working beautifully. Excellent.
So okay, I have a few more questions to go.
Go for it, my lovely.
And so I think you definitely talked about your past career and some of the challenges there, but what would you say in your current business? Because we don't want to paint a picture that everything is rosy, no. Working for yourself. So are there some challenges that you come across? Yeah. So share some of those.
Okay. The biggest challenge that I have had to confront is, who on earth am I? Right. And that sounds really kind of trite, but it's not, because as in the field that I do, obviously therapy, people are looking for incongruence, right? And I couldn't stand there in all good consciousness and lie to people and say, yeah, I can, yeah. Because you know when you meet someone, you think, oh, there's something not quite right about them.
Yeah.
And the corporate world is fantastic for encouraging you to try and be someone that you're not, because you have to keep that momentum. You have to keep that pay grade. You have to fight. You're always trying to be somebody that you're not.
Yeah.
And the biggest challenge for me was actually manning up and being brave with who I was, who I am, and dealing with all of that. And it's not an easy thing to do.
No.
And the way that it came out was every time I talk about Bowen, I do lots of lectures and I go and I'll talk about Bowen for hours. And I had to stand up in front of people and tell people what I do and convince them to come to me. And to convince people, you have to stand on your own 2 feet and stand alone on your own 2 feet.
Mm.
You have to be happy with who you are, happy in your own skin, because that's when people resonate with you. And actually some people don't. Some people don't resonate with you at all, and that's fine, because therapy is a very personal thing. You have to find someone that you want to treat you, someone that empathizes with you.
Yeah.
And so the biggest challenge that I had was actually getting over that and being able to stand on my own 2 feet and say, actually, this is who I am. And actually, do you know what? I actually quite like myself. And actually, I'm pretty good at what I do, and I can help you. And then it's your choice. But I had to be able to stand there and say that absolutely confidently. So for me, that was the biggest challenge. That really was the biggest challenge. And I'm very lucky, because I'm quite good at what I do. I get lots of, it's word of mouth. Yeah. Word of mouth is the best way of being referred.
Definitely.
All adverts do is make people aware that you are there.
Mm. Mm.
And it's then, once people know that you're there, know your name and hear your name and what you do, it's then your responsibility, I feel, to go out and say, hi, really, I do this and this is me. And you can either like me and I'll come and treat you, or if you don't like me, go and find someone else, but you actually do need help. So yes, that's probably the biggest challenge that I've had to overcome, standing alone on my own 2 feet.
So being a small clinic,
Yeah.
do you have a vision to become a bigger clinic?
Oh, yeah.
Many clinics around the country. Where's Bardley Bowen going?
Oh, that's a very, very good question. Actually, quite pertinent at the moment, because I every horse owner usually has a dog. And I have just embarked on my canine Bowen.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and that's phenomenal. That's just, and the really, really strange thing about Bowen is that, if you've got a spine, it will help.
Yeah.
And no, it's really, really strange, because, tying all these knots together, tying all these loose ends together, back to my problem solving ability. I get a horse, I get a human, and now a dog, and actually a cat, and I haven't done a chicken yet, although my chickens out there I probably could do. Will present with something. And I know my anatomy well enough now to say, right, you telling me that you hurt there. That's not really the real root cause, is it? That's, you're presenting with a symptom. And so my brain is going, right, okay, there's a problem here. How do we solve it? And I've been very, very fortunate in the Bowen world that I've met some amazing mentors. That's another thing that I would advocate, is if you do go off on your own, it can be very, very solitary. You can get very scared and you can get into trouble. So you can get kind of lost in the mire of it all. And so I was lucky that I found some people. I looked for them. I knew that I needed them. I looked for them and I found them.
Brilliant.
And I found people that resonated with me to be able to say, actually, Vic, if you're stuck, don't do that. Try this instead. And people on the end of the phone that I would trust and say that I've got this client, this isn't working. What do I do? Try that. Fantastic. And then when you get those little bits of reassurance, you can kind of, it's very, very good for your confidence. And that's something that I would highly advocate. It's all very well going off on your own and standing on your own 2 feet, but sometimes you just need that little bit of support.
Yeah. I think that's great advice. And for anybody starting out, because as you said, you've got to stand there on your own. So you might as well find people that have done the same thing. because you can actually not. Actually, sometimes, and that's one of my great findings was women in rural, if I could speak, women in rural enterprise. They're known as WIRE. And I joined that network, and the advice that I got from some people who were not therapists, they were financial advisors or they were HR people, and the solidarity, let's say, and it's nothing to do with the fact they were women. It was just, I've been there, Vic. I've done that. Absolutely.
Not in the same field, but I've done that.
Yeah.
This is how you get over it. Go and find, and that for me was really, it was quite essential, because I knew what I was doing. I knew I had to set my company up. When I walked with that, it wasn't a walk of shame, but when I left that last company, I kind of knew that I was being pushed into doing therapy, because I'm quite good at it. And I've done business plans for companies till I'm blue in the face. You do your own business plan? Really? How on earth do I do that?
Yeah.
Well, and I had to give myself a good talking to. You've done business plans, you've done spreadsheets, you know what you're doing. But it's for me. Yes, you do know what you're doing. Yeah, actually, I do. And these ladies would sit there and say, hey, you've done it all. Show me what you've done. Yes, that's perfect. And you think, of course it's perfect. But sometimes you just need that little bit of support.
Yeah.
And that little bit of validation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I would absolutely advocate if finding that support, and it doesn't have to, it's good if it is from your own field, but it doesn't have to be.
No, absolutely. I think it's better. You're right. It's better if someone has done it before, meaning they have run their own business. They have to stand there on their own, and they've got the T-shirt and the badges and all of that for having done it. So you can shortcut that by listening to people like you to listen to your story about how you've done it, and then being prepared because they've listened to your story. Yeah. So, Vicky, we're coming to the end now.
Okay.
So how can people find you? Do you have a website?
Oh, yes, I do.
Facebook?
Yes,
where can people find you? Just just share vocally. It will be on the show notes as well, but just share vocally where they can find you.
Well, I trade under Bardley Bowen. Bardley Barn is the house that I live in, so Bardley Bowen is the name, and it's spelled Bardley. It's very simple, www.bardleybowen.co.uk, or there is a Facebook page under Bardley Bowen. More than happy to speak to anyone, more than happy if people want to email me or message me, even if it's just for clarification of stuff that I've been rambling on about, or a bit more of advice, then happy for anyone to get in touch. I love talking, can you tell?
It's been brilliant, Vicky, listening to you. And thank you so much for sharing your story. I know people will be inspired by you and hearing what you've done and how you've got to where you are today. Wishing you fantastic success for the ongoing journey that you're on with your business. Yeah. And I'm sure we'll see each other at a next networking event. So Bye for now.
Thank you, Michael.
And I'm sure we'll see each other very soon.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
Staying Alive UK. Share your story.